So once again, our focus is the road to Emmaus. I couldn't help myself and I brought this up during my homily on Easter Sunday. So here we are, a couple weeks later, and to avoid being redundant, I want to focus on a relatively specific part of the story. It's a question people very often ask about with this part of the Bible. Why didn't the disciples recognize Jesus? It's a perfectly fair question. The disciples were with him all day, talking to him, and they still didn't catch on. Why? Well, there are a number of minor answers I could give. Maybe Jesus just looked and sounded a bit different because it was the resurrected Christ. Or maybe Jesus was a fairly ordinary-looking, person, and he was hard to distinguish from others. Maybe that's a factor. I don't really know. I do know that this very thing happened to St. Francis of Assisi, that later in his life he showed up at a monastery and none of the brothers recognized him as the founder of their own order. So it's his road to Emmaus moment. So this stuff does happen in ordinary life. I don't know any about that. What I do know forms my primary answer to this question. Why didn't they recognize Jesus? They were self-absorbed in pity and self-doubt. In other words, they weren't capable of paying attention to what was right in front of them. And I said, I know that. I know that people are capable of this because I'm guilty of it myself, as are the vast majority of us. As people, we fail to notice basic stuff all the time. Our senses are not perfect, and our eyesight does not work the same way as a camera lens. We focus on one thing at the expense of another. And that is an advantage of ours. We are at our best when we give 100% of attention to the matter at hand. But it comes with a disadvantage as well. We miss things on the periphery. So back in school, I had a girlfriend, and like most teenage guys, I didn't know what I was doing. So one evening, we wrapped up some event at school. I don't remember what it was. It was probably a football game. And she asked if I wanted to go to this other event afterwards at a friend's house. And I told the truth. I said, no, I don't want to do that. Thanks anyway. By my perception, it was a simple exchange of information and nothing more. And I moved on without a second thought. I felt zero guilt. But my mom was nearby, because it was still high school. She saw all of that. So she took me aside a minute or two later and said to me, Justin, you really hurt her feelings. You realize that, right? And I was honestly surprised to hear that. I said, what are you talking about, Mom? I just told her that I would rather have gone back home. My mom said, Justin, she clearly wanted you to make time for her. You basically told her that you didn't value being around her. My mom was right, of course. Moms often are. But honestly, it could have been anyone there to overhear that conversation and knock some sense to me in the moment. I just wasn't paying attention. I didn't really hear the question, and therefore I couldn't possibly have given the right answer. Like the disciples on the road to Emmaus, I failed to see what was right in front of my eyes. And that is a very common story. Just about everybody has a story like that. And even if you don't have any dating blunders in your past, Well, then you probably said something foolish to your boss at one point. Or maybe you were at a party and you failed to notice someone obviously abusing the open bar until what we call in my family the drama explosion. These things happen. We fail to notice plainly obvious things. We all do this. We focus on one thing at the expense of another, and that is the road to Emmaus. That's what the story is all about. Two guys walking down a road, and they're just too bummed to notice Jesus right there on their side. But there's good news as well, because once Jesus has your attention, you're all set. Once Jesus is in focus, it's kind of tough to take your eye off him. And when you get down to it, that's what the Mass is really all about, focusing 1 hour of our time on God. Hopefully, you like the music and you see someone that you enjoy being around. Those are perks to coming to church. And hey, maybe the priest is even able to teach you something. All good things. But the bottom line is that you come to church to sacrifice your time and attention to Christ by focusing on Him for just a little while. God knows we spend plenty of time focusing on other things. Think about this past week. How much time did you focus on work? How much time did you focus on your favorite TV show? What about the news? Dinner plans? Bathroom supplies? So many things that we excessively focus on. And Christ is right there in your peripheral vision throughout it all. Mass is an hour or so long for the purpose of focusing on Christ in the breaking of the bread. So let's all strive to be the disciples on the road to Emmaus. At least let's be those disciples at the end of the story, when they do indeed recognize their God and Savior among them.